Hey guys, we're back with Monk, who also topped forward in the Tuesday Melee this week.
Second place again.
Second place again, right? And this time you're playing a bit of a different deck. You're
Yep.
playing it's basically kind of a slower, um, Cassiva, Nether Summonings type of deck. So, how did you kind of come up with the design of this deck, and what's the game plan?
So basically, the idea is to put down defensive minions, uh, like the Altas, Reaper, and Vorpal Reaper, and then run them in and suicide them into something big, and then summon back both of those things for a heavy swing turn. And the idea came from me just getting absolutely destroyed by Nether Summoning. I can't remember if it was a ladder game or in a tournament game or something. And I was thinking, it can't be true that this isn't utilized more because it's so easy to get off. Uh, so I threw in three of those and just a tons of big guys. And it actually worked out quite well.
Right. Yeah, I think the part of Nether Summoning that a lot of people don't get is that it summons your opponent's minions back
Yeah,
for you
exactly.
also. So if you make that trade, you just get both minions. And if you
I
do it with
think
something like a Reaper, it gets pretty crazy.
it might be the game that you're showing in the background, but I had one game where I resurrected the Ultas and Sojourner like three times in a row.
So yeah, so basically the early game is all defensive. It looks like you have grasps, you have the Azure Heralds, you have ooze, which is just kind of like a body.
Yeah.
The punish. What about the Primus Fist? Because that's kind of an interesting thing in a more defensive deck. I assume you're looking for trading, but what minions are you trying to like kind of buff up a little bit so you can get the more favorable trades there?
It was funny actually because exactly Primus Fist is the only major change I made from my original idea. Originally, it was three mystical, no, not healing
Healing
mystics.
Mystics, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I was having a hard time trying to win back the board because my early game is really sloppy in general. There's only Sojourner and then Ooze, and
Right.
Sojourner isn't really fighting for anything; it's just drawing. Uh, so I was just trying something else. I was looking at more. I was looking at a few different two drops, but Primus Fist Master, whatever his name is, just seemed like the best of those options. So I tried it out, and it really worked great actually. Buffing Sojourners and buffing the Tombstone from the Ultas, and even on Asher Herald because it's a 1/4 instead. I can trade with other two drops and it's surviving. So it surprisingly it worked way better than I expected, even though I didn't have that great an early game to buff up. I always had something.
Right, no, that makes sense. And the other thing that I actually didn't even notice immediately is that you're not running any of the creep synergy cards. You're not running the Juggernauts. You're not even running Sphere of Darkness, which is just run all the time is just a ping.
Yeah,
You're not running even a single Obliterate. So, do you just feel like that is just kind of a little bit too difficult to make work, or did you just feel like you were kind of a little too tight on kind of the other combo to fit in kind of both synergies, or what was the thinking behind kind of excluding all of that?
it's basically like the tightness of it, but also the fact that those cards, like the like creep generating cards overall, doesn't help the deck move onwards. For example, you have the 2/1, the one drop that spams out creep. If you want to play creep uh, decks, you generally want that card, but it doesn't really help you win the early game, and because there's a relative low amount of draw, it doesn't really help you stay like on the curve either. And the same with Sphere. I try to, because I often lose the early game. I need to win the game back with big swings in the mid game, and therefore I don't have time to just waste one mana and have a dead card in hand. It's actually funny because Sphere specifically is one of those cards that people are looking at as a stable, but even while Varix was on her high, I didn't play that at all. I didn't play Sphere to get like to draw into that. I don't know about Sphere. It's one of those cards that looks super strong, but oftentimes it's just, hey, I'm using 1 mana and then I draw into my 5 mana card, but now I have 4 mana instead, and I can't play it out. So it's
Right,
kind of
yeah.
funny that way.
With the deck where you're trying to like hit your upper ends of the curve because you have the 5, 6, 7 that
Yeah,
you're trying to hit. Yeah, the
exactly.
1 mana you just really can't afford to. I mean, I think in a deck with Abyssal Juggernaut and
Yeah,
um,
you need it for Juggernaut,
in
definitely.
Obliterate, yeah, it has a little bit more synergy. But yeah,
Yeah,
just I mean, I've seen it in just Lilith decks a lot, where it doesn't have the synergy. So people have been running it just as kind of like the
yeah.
ping and the draw.
It's
But
funny,
yeah,
that surprises me a lot that they play that, but I guess it comes down to preference.
yeah, well, it's just it's interesting to see the types. I mean, I think it's always cool to see the when you have the cards that are in every version of a faction, and then you see someone kind of going away from that, and it kind of breaks those assumptions of this. Every deck in this faction starts off with three of these.
Yeah.
Kind of like I think I saw maybe you guys. I think it was maybe you and Henry who were dropping the lions from the Zaran. Was that you guys?
Oh no, I can't take credit for that.
No. Okay. I
I think
saw.
it was Such or Chandra no caps.
Maybe that was it. I saw some people doing that, and I had previously started off all of my Lionel decks with, those great two drops, and it's just, you kind of just challenge those assumptions a little bit.
Yeah, it like that. I think that decision. It's a little off topic, but really, that decision changed this round archetype from being that this we can't really make it work to like a top tier deck.
Right, and yeah, I mean, we see in this game in the background you're playing against Zavan actually, and you're playing
Yeah,
a post sideboard game right here. And Zavan's usually a pretty good matchup, or at least as far as I know, Javan is considered good against Cassiva because Sunforge Lancer is so good against Kaleno, which is
yeah,
kind of your recovery card. So since this is the melee, you're playing with a sideboard, and I think we just saw the Grove Keeper come out.
yeah.
So given this is a tough matchup, do you want to kind of explain kind of how you built your sideboard and kind of the matchups you were targeting, maybe starting with this one?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I found out that this deck gets absolutely obliterated by mechs. Absolutely destroyed by mechs. So I started off by putting in 3 crossbones. I usually don't include crossbones. I think they are a little too specific towards mechs and nothing else. Like, you can hit a 1/1 from Rira, but I wouldn't cite it in there even. And then I was looking through my collection. I saw Hollow Grovekeeper, and Hollow Grovekeeper can also kill a Mechasaur because it has Frenzy, right? Uh, so I only had 2 of those, so I put in 2 of those, and I had to make room for it. So I removed one of the crossbones. So super aggression and mech destroys this deck, and that is why I included Breath of the Unborn as well, to kind of deal with just spam in general. But I didn't encounter any of that on the ladder. So the only card I really decided was Lightbender, which I always include, like always include in my side deck. It's just such a versatile card against Cyrix, against Siran, against even the mirror matchup. So I always include Lightbender, and then Hollow Grovekeeper. I used it a lot against all the Lionel matchups. So that's my reasoning. I wanted to kill Mech. I didn't encounter Mech, but Hollow Grovekeeper still did a good job.
Well, yeah, I've actually I've played a lot of Hollow Grove Keeper in various decks. It's I started playing kind of seriously when Kron was a card, so
Yeah,
I just kind of main decked three Hollow Grove Keepers because people were main decking all their Krons. So I've kind of always had a soft spot for it, and it's definitely great against Lina.
yeah.
It can hit some tombstones. It doesn't it doesn't do a ton in the other matchups. So what are your hottest matchups? Would you say other than Zaran with this deck?
Yeah, Siran actually wasn't that hard because it's so greedy, but I outgreeded. And especially because it was the melee format, I could just side out the Kalinos. So overall, that wasn't actually such a hard matchup. And the same goes for Faye. which I thought would be a super hard matchup because they just transform and enfeeble everything. But if they enfeeble my minions, I really don't care for the most part. They enfeeble a Reaper of the Moon, it doesn't matter. They kill it, I get something, and I res it again with full stats. Um, so so the worst matchups are definitely, like I mentioned, mechs are impossible, close to impossible to beat, and just hyper aggression. Uh, and then I found out that apparently I also get destroyed by Keeper Wrath.
All
With
right,
absolutely no chance.
that's what you played in the finals, right?
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Spoiler. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty. I mean, that's not an archetype you see all the time, but
No,
it definitely has its matchups that it really crushes. So
but
did
yeah,
so you did side out Kalanos. I mean, Kalanos a card that most people would never make a Abyssian deck without right now. Did you felt like there were some matchups where you could just kind of do without it, or was a liability against Iran?
yeah, it was specifically against Iran, and also, yeah, I guess against Iran. Also, just the 4 drops I had to side in. It got quite tight really quickly because I needed double Hollow Grove Keeper and triple Lightbender. So I just removed the Kleiner altogether, and then I think right and something else. Uh, so yeah, I can survive without Kalino just fine in the first couple of turns, and Saran doesn't really have a burst, so it doesn't really matter if I'm sitting around at 5 HP if I can just stabilize the board. So I have no problem there. But Kalino is definitely the card you have in the standard deck, and then side out if you have to.
Right, now that makes sense. In one card, I do the daily card discussions
Yeah,
on Reddit sometimes, and we actually had one about Breath of the Unborn, and I kind of felt it. A lot of times you're kind of using it as an expensive Tempest,
yeah,
and if you were to have big minions on the board, usually there's not the enemy swarm. So, did you find that it was mostly a Tempest, or were you able to kind of get some utility out of the healing aspect um, in some situations because you don't have the juggernauts, which are like the huge, big, HPs, but you do have, Vorpal Reaver and Spectral and even Sojourner or whatever that can get, take some damage but survive. So were you able to actually utilize the healing a lot, or how did you find that card really performed?
I didn't get to play Breath of the Unborn a
Okay,
single time,
you didn't get to
but
try it.
I can make a quick guess because I played Healing Mystic before, and I actually almost exclusively used it to heal my minions. So there's definitely the potential to heal minions, like healing Sojourner, like you mentioned, even healing something like Vorpal Reaver. If you hit something with 2 attack, it goes down to 4, and you're against, let's say, Lionar, healing you up to 6. It makes it way harder for them to deal with because you can't just wholly immolate. So I can definitely see the healing aspect of Breath of the Unborn also being quite viable in this deck.
Okay, that's cool. It just yeah, it's kind of unfortunate if you only get to use one half of the card. So it's cool to see that you're able to utilize both halves. That's
Yeah,
kind of I think people underrate healing Mystic, especially since Harold came out. It kind of just seems like redundant, but it does heal your minions a lot, and that can kind of especially when you're kind of down to like just a few minions on the board, it can really kind of affect the amount of trades you can do and
yeah.
keep things alive. So I think that's a cool card that I hope I've played in a few decks, but I was playing it in a Variax deck where you had all those 5/5s that it was difficult to clear in one turn, so you could kind of get them up. But
I think it's coming out in and out of popularity. Think I saw Draggle main it actually at some point on the top of the ladder. So
oh yeah, I haven't seen that deck, but I know he does. Actually, actually thinking back, I think when we had that daily card discussion, he actually mentioned that he was running Breath of the Unborn in his Lilith decks. I think
yeah,
so. That's pretty cool. But just about this deck, I know a lot of people who see Vorpal Reaver in Cassiva kind of think, why run Vorpal Reaver over Klaxon? Klaxon, I
Yeah.
think. Now, you're not running the normal um, creep synergies, as we kind of talked about. But, it is kind of a. You said, you're playing defensive cards, whereas Vorpal Reaver seems a lot more offensive. And they're both 6 mana, so they kind of fill a similar, slot. So,
Hmm.
what made you go with the Vorpal Reaver over the Klaxon? It seems like it might be, more of the Kasiva card, whereas this one seems kind of maybe like the Lilith card.
Yeah,
In terms of
it's
what they might have been thinking.
it's all about range actually. Just the fact that I just like Reaper of the Nine Moons can fly across the board, so I can put it back in defense, and then fly it in and trade it. It's kind of the same with Vorpal Reaver because it has celerity. So the Death Rattle, I say Death Rattle, but it's obviously Dying Wish here. But the Dying Wish ability doesn't really have that much of an impact on the card as to why I'm using it. It's really about the celerity that I can walk in and then walk again if I have to, and also the fact that I can hit twice, so there's a bigger chance that I can kill it if my opponent completely ignores it. There was a lot of battles where I would hit it into something with 4 attack and then run it down and kill something else with 2 attack, and then I would rest afterwards. I think I had one game against TM87 where I hit his face while he had an artifact equipped. So it took 4 damage, and then I could run it down and kill Kalino, and then resurrect Kalino and Vorpal Reaver back afterwards. It's just such a crazy swing. The one ones for the most part, there's not that much synergy. The best thing, the most like the synergy that happens the most often is just putting down Kalino and then healing for 3 to 5, depending on how many of those are in range. So they kind of just run into whatever, and sometimes they help trade down some minions, but yeah, they are a minor side effect. It's mostly about the celerity aspect, definitely.
Right. No, when watching, even this game we have running against Hulala. Hulala. I'm not going to get that. It's fine. We've kind of seen that instead of, now you guys are grouped up, but, the usual gameplay, you kind of run into the middle. But in this game, you kind of stayed on your own side for a while, and you were able to use the Reapers, play them very far back,
Yeah, exactly.
and kind of fly them into battle. And you can kind of do the same thing with, I mean, Spectral Revenant has the rush, so you can kind of, attack. You can kind of put your general, in a pretty defensive position, while still utilizing all your big minions, because you need them to die really to get the big value out of them. You need
Yeah,
need them to get in combat, but you want them to get favorable trades is also the important part. So you've really picked all minions that can kind of get into the position you need them to get without having to kind of leave them super vulnerable for that turn. Um, so I think
exactly.
that's the major thing that we wanted to cover.
I don't
Yeah,
know if I ever mentioned like the call for this deck because it's super greedy, and I think me and Henry both agree that the meta is going towards something super greedy right now, which is why we played the decks we played. Uh, and we might see a shift just because everything is getting so greedy right now, like extremely greedy. Uh, we might see a shift towards some hyper aggression sometime soon to counter it. But that's why we made this. Everything is greedy. Lionheart, the best build, is super greedy with Sears and Aegis barriers and stuff, and the best Siran build is obviously also super greedy. And people are even putting in meltdowns into all decks.
right.
Into
Yeah.
Reva and Faye and this Embla and Faye, like what is happening?
Right, yeah, I've seen a ton of meltdowns lately. And when you say greedy, you mean more the slow, controlling,
Yeah, exactly.
playing the
Heavy curve.
playing the big stuff. Okay, yeah, just
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a term that I don't know if everyone's familiar with, but yeah, just I think in a lot of times in kind of control matchups and mid-range matchups even, the person who plays, if you're going play for play kind of back and forth, it's the person who plays the slightly greedier build that usually wins there
Yeah.
because they're if they're throwing a haymaker and you're throwing a haymaker, the person who's throwing the slightly bigger things is the one to win. So in this slow meta, you think that just going with the slowest possible thing you can survive the early game, and then just having the huge late game. You think that's the place to be right now?
Yeah, exactly. Either that, or you want a strong swing card, something that can completely turn the tides of the game.
Right, like a
Uh,
Macantor,
yeah,
Keeper of the Veil
exactly,
into the third or
exactly.
fourth Macantor, right? Right, yeah, you know what that's like. Now, did you ever test Meltdown in this deck, or was it just not able to kind of die enough to really have the synergy you were looking for?
I never tested it, no.
No.
But yeah, the theory is that uh, why should I put it in, because it doesn't suicide as well as my other minions.
Yeah.
And also it's even heavier in curve, right? It's an 8 mana card, so I guess if we see even more greed, you put that in
Right,
as well.
you could go with the super high end. Yeah, I mean,
uh,
Reaper's kind of a card. Just quickly, I think we've talked a good amount, but Reaper I think is a card that in a greedy meta, Reaper is even better because it pulls
yeah,
from your opponent's deck. So the slower their deck, the more chance of you getting something huge out of a Reaper is.
yeah,
So
Reaver's
that's
insane right now.
yeah, right. Yeah, if you pulled the meltdown, then all of a sudden there you go. You don't need to put it in your deck. Well, thank you for taking us through this deck again. If you keep getting second place, maybe we'll keep having more deck
I hope the
checks.
curse will
Maybe,
lift
yeah,
soon.
maybe the curse of getting second. I don't know if you're gonna what. I mean, that's a better curse. And I think I've been out in the first round both times. So,
Oh
I'll trade if you want, but
man,
no. Thank you so
yeah.
much, and hopefully I got the audio so people can hear you and not just me trying to breathe and cling to life over here. So hopefully we get that. Thanks so much.
Thank
Talk
you
to you
as
again.
well.